Anthropic admits that MCPs suck, and they do suck. They eat up context. They're unreliable at best, and they make your AI dumber because, again, that additional context is causing I think they call it needle in a haystack problem or something like that. People have realized that it's a standard that needs reinvention, and who better to make that realization or to admit that realization than the very people who invented it, Anthropic. Theo made this video just kind of basically going over this article, which raises some really interesting points. It just admits to the tool calling aspect, constantly having these tool calls in context, whether you're using them or not. It's a headache, to be honest. While I'm coding, I'm turning MCPs on and off, and then I forget to turn them on and off. And, it's something you just don't want to have to manage. Just a quick side note, I did learn, because I'm starting to use CodeRabbit. I'm trying to build up a bit more robust coding environment that picks up on my blind spots, allows me to be a more impactful independent programmer. I install CodeRabbit, which is an AI code reviewer, and they get you to use the CLI through Claude Code. What would you do in terminal? Do you use any CLIs that we could?
Yeah, in my terminal, I just do Git.
You've got Git installed on your computer,
yeah.
And you trigger that CLI with the term Git. If you start that terminal command with Git, that's using now the CLI, and they're the arguments that follow that. I hope that makes sense there.
I didn't know that. So, okay, that makes sense, because I do Git status, right?
Yeah.
To understand if I have pushed or not, I forget. And then I do Git add dot to add everything, essentially.
And this is a great example, because you can ask your AI to push. If you just say push this to Git, it will do Git commit and write a nice commit message and Git push. So I always knew it could use a CLI because it's using the Git CLI. You can use it with CodeRabbit. Similarly, I use Taskmaster, which eats up so much context. Taskmaster has a CLI, which I've got installed. So now I'm just going to remove that MCP. I have removed that MCP, and I'm going to use the CLI. That's just my own personal thing. That's nothing to do with this article, but it's a way of me now just really, realizing that MCPs just suck. Okay. I prefer to preserve context and not have to manage stuff. And have my AI not be stupid. So here is Anthropic going through the downsides. They're not going to completely tell you it's rubbish. They still keep their kind of one foot in the door with MCP. They still want you to use it. But what it does go on to say, and what I've noticed recently, actually, so it's funny how it all comes about. Because, by the way, this was released, I think, on the 4th of November. Yeah, 4th of November. What I've noticed that AI is doing now is writing JavaScript files to do sort of push stuff to the database or to do certain things. So it will write its own code, and AI has always been great at writing its own code. So what Claude Code is suggesting here is and I've yet to understand how to actually do this. Do you ask Claude to create this MCP server? But ultimately, you tell it that there is the MCPs are here as files that it can use. So you can remove the MCP, and this just uses the APIs to access Google Drive instead of the Google Drive MCP. There's a bunch of files there, which files don't eat up context unless it's actually going to be using them. So then the AI will write a piece of code that imports. Actually, this is the wrong one here. It's this one. It imports the Google Drive files and then runs this bit of code. And then this is the only context that it's using, because it just runs this code and then it's gone. It's not going to be wasting up. And what they found was 150,000. This is wild, by the way. 150,000 tokens to 2,000 tokens, a time cost saving of 98%. What are you doing, Anthropic? Like, why are you still using this standard that you can, if you can rejig it just a little bit, maybe this is a skill, maybe this is something. Like 98.7% is crazy.
Crazy.
So I want to start looking into how I can incorporate what they're doing here. I'll read the article a little bit more deeply, and how I can inevitably create a file-based MCP service or whatever. If indeed Google Drive doesn't have a CLI that I can just tap into, because a CLI will just run. But ultimately, you're asking your AI just to run a bit of code. So yeah, they're admitting MCP is not so great, and there are other ways to use it. But in the summary here, somewhere, they kind of keep their foot in the door. MCPs, are they on their way out? I think people struggle with the concept of them. I would love it if they work, if they were more deterministic, if they would always run. I've resorted to saying, use the Taskmaster MCP to add this as a task, or use the linear MCP. It used to be that you could just lightly mention, add this task, or Figma, take the design or something like that, and it will just know to use the MCP. But it's just too hit or miss. You might as well just use the Figma MCP to, get that node or whatever it is. It is quite nice that you can, again, just ask something to do something in natural language. That's great. It really is. But there needs to be a way to do it without, having to constantly, I don't know. It's just, they just don't need to be there, basically. So yeah. This is part of a larger conversation on my show, Command AI, which we stream live every single week. We discuss the news and all things related to AI in the world of design and web. Catch us next week and join in the banter.